Welcome everyone to the Dr. Jill White Show. TikTok Live. I'm excited. Facebook Live, YouTube Live. I'm excited about the whole thing. So we got a great discussion. So I want to welcome everyone to this TikTok Live. Um, Today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic. What I'm referring to is the three pillars of manhood, three pillars that are critical for men and ensuring that they have a strong family. So let's wait till we get a couple people on, you all. This is going to be a very interesting discussion and dialogue. Any of you young men that are out there, any fathers out there, any husbands that are out there, any young ladies who are interested or dating, or you are marriage minded and you have an interest in just trying to understand what constitutes the type of man that you're looking for. And brothers, I want to open up for you all as well on this TikTok live, this YouTube live, in which I'm calling and I'm focusing on the pillars. This is sort of like a pillars podcast today because it's focusing on manhood, fatherhood, and husbandhood. Three big things that I think are critical to have a conversation about. And we're going to see in this discussion, when we talk about manhood, when we talk about fatherhood, and when we talk about familyhood, and in all of those things, right? Being a strong man, being a good father, and being a good husband, you all are going to see, Gladys, I'm telling you all that I am saying that it's a requirement and that we should have an expectation of all three. So let's just get some people on. I'm here on TikTok Live as well as YouTube. To my YouTube folks, welcome. So good to see you, Gladys. Tay, glad to have you on. Charles, glad to have you all on in this discussion here about these three pillars. These are three things that I'm saying that are absolutely critical in this journey of building a strong family. And so what I'm saying, brothers, what I'm saying to you, men, if you want to be the head of your house, if you talking about being a family man or building a strong family, well, there's three pillars that I'm going to unpack on today. These three pillars that we're just going to examine. Mike, good to see you. School, glad to have you on, you all. We're going to push manhood, fatherhood, and husbandhood. And we'll see. Like I said, if one is weak, the other two suffer. So I'm looking forward to engaging in this. Leonard, glad to have you on. Frank, glad to have you on. Nina, hair braiding. You better put a shout out about your hair braiding company. But we're going to jump into this particular discussion and dialogue. So again, if you all know a young man, a new someone who's just got married, someone who's been married, and you're struggling in the relationship, well, I'm going to take the position that it may be one of these three. I am Dr. Gary O. White. Just today, just call me the TikTok doc. How about that? I'm Dr. Gary O. White, and all the work that I do centers around building and strengthening families. I come from a strengths perspective. Dexter, good to see you. You all, I'm giving shout outs to people who are joining me on TikTok. That's the Dr. Jill White Show. Y'all get in here and let's get ready to jump into what I'm really calling in this particular moment a much needed discussion and dialogue. I want to remove some of the mystery. I know a lot of times in some of these TikToks and YouTubes and things that I've been seeing, even on Instagram, I'm seeing these discussions about family. I'm seeing these discussions around expectations of men and women. But what drives me crazy, especially when it's the dialogue about the Black family, what drives me crazy is that it's always from this deficit, dysfunctional, or some might even call some pathological standpoint. So I want to debunk some of that because I want to talk about the strength in this regard of the Black family. And so I'm going to talk about the strength. And here, this is a specific conversation to men. And ladies, I need you all to listen. Y'all help me out, chime in. And brothers, there's no place and no room to feel offended because there's nothing that I'm going to say in this regard that I think is controversial or challenging. So I want to welcome everyone to this discussion. And y'all, I'm just going to say, put your seatbelt on. All right. So I'm your host. And this, I need y'all to understand that this is a space was created with one mission in mind for today, right? And that's to restore the foundation of manhood, fatherhood, and husbandhood in our community. And so this is the piece that we're going to jump in, because let me be clear about this here, that many of us, when we began to think about it, some men, if you're honest with yourself, many of us were never really shown what it would truly like to represent all three, to be a man, to be a father, to be a husband. We may have gotten some understanding of one or the other, but some of us may have not gotten the experience of literally being able to enjoy all of this, because let's be real, when we think about these things, some of this we've had to figure out on our own, right? Through our own journey, right? Piece by piece, we've had to make sense of this manhood, this fatherhood, and what I'm calling it, husbandhood. So some of us have had to figure this out piece by piece, and let me say, mistake by mistake, right? Some of us grew up without fathers. Some of us grew up without grandfathers, and some of us had fathers who were present, but the truth is that they were not available. And so when we think about this, is why I want to focus today on these three pillars. So I'm glad to see some of y'all chiming on in today. Reggie, glad to see you. Lynette, glad to have you on. I can't wait to hear some of your comments in this regard. But these are the three pillars: manhood, fatherhood, and husbandhood, that I want to give this argument about, right? So, and some of us, if you really think about it, are now raising children, and we're still trying to raise ourselves. So that's an honest conversation, that some of us right now are raising children, and we're still trying to figure out how to raise ourselves. So this podcast is about breaking the cycle today, right? So we're going to disrupt some of the old ways of thinking, because I want to break down and go into particular what each of these are about. So here I'm going to talk about discipline, responsibility, leadership, healing, and legacy, right? And so not from a place of perfection. Let me say that. Not from a place of perfection, but from a place of growth. And so I need all of us. Ron Johnson, glad to have you on. Sammy Dre, glad to have you on. Zephyr, glad to have you on. Glad to have you all on this discussion, and can't wait to hear your thoughts. And y'all, as I'm running my mouth, please feel free to jump in, because every episode, every discussion, we're going in to challenge each other to rise to another level, to become pillars in our home, in our relationships, and in our communities. Pillars in our home, pillars in our relationships, pillars in our community. So if you're ready to grow, if you're ready to lead, and if you're ready to build something that lasts, watch this, y'all, beyond you, you're in the right place right now. And so we have to do this, because some of us, y'all, we do great work out in the community. The community loves us. Some of y'all, gentlemen, brothers, some of you all have gotten awards for your community work. Some of you have gotten accolades, recognition. Some of you have become the go-to person when it comes to doing workshops and lectures. Everybody loves you, but I'm going to tell you, hey, Ashley, glad to see you, sis. But there's something, if the world loves you, if the community loves you, if the organizations, brothers, that you belong to, if they love you, but the children can't stand you, then you got work to do. There's a pillar that is weak, right? So if you're doing the workshops, if you're writing the books, if you're doing the lectures, right? If you are a mentor and you have gotten awards for being one of the best mentors on the planet, but you have no relationship with your own children, you got some work to do. And so it's easier sometimes to focus on one pillar rather than the other. But the truth is, this is a critical conversation that speaks on legacy and identity and responsibility. And so this here is where you all are jumping in on. And why we understand why this discussion is so important. Now, let me begin with a reality check. Why I'm focusing on fatherhood, manhood, and husbandhood. Just think about this. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, about 70% of Black children are born to unmarried mothers in the United States. About 70%. Data from the Pew Research Center shows that Black adults have lower marriage rates compared to other racial groups, with only about 30% that are currently married. And CDC and for prevention reports that Black families in particular experience higher divorce rates or separation rates, often tied to economic and systemic pressures. And so we see these things. However, this is critical. Research from National Center of Health Statistics show that Black fathers, think about this, you all, Black fathers who live with their children are among the most actively involved across all racial groups. So I need y'all to understand this. With all that other stuff I told you, we see that Black fathers, is in particular, who live with their children, are most active. Those are most actively involved with their children across all groups. Why? Because we recognize that Black men in particular tend to place a greater value on being there. And so we have to understand that because they are superior, right? I don't know what you mean, JR. I'm not sure who you're saying is superior, but I'm going to tell you, a healthy father, healthy husband, and a healthy marriage, if that's what you call a superior, then I agree with you. Y'all think about this. I'm just dropping some stats and facts to set the tone for why I'm focusing on my 3 pillars of husbandhood, fatherhood, and manhood. So even around this notion of emotional intelligence, the American Psychological Association emphasized that men who demonstrate emotional awareness and accountability build stronger families, relationships, and communities. So you all see what begins to happen, that the issue is not about capability. The issue is not about capacity. The issue is about consistency, structure, and support. So that's why I call fatherhood, manhood, and husbandhood what I'm referring to in this regard, the Holy Trinity. These are the 3 things or the 3 pieces that I'm taking a strong stance on. And so we have to begin to look at this, because manhood is not, I want to start with this one. And y'all might want to jump on me on this one, but I want to stand with the first pillar here. I'm talking about manhood, the foundation, who you are. Now, I'm going to tell y'all that manhood is not a permanent title. It's a daily discipline and it requires maintenance. So I'm going to tell you right now, you can be numerically a man. Once you hit 21, you're a man. So some of us are numerically men, but emotionally juvenile. Some of us are numerically men, but spiritually, right, adolescents. Some of us are numerical men, but when it comes to crisis, we're toddlers. And so the concept of being a man around this regard, I'm taking a strong position that it requires maintenance. This is the first pillar here, right? Growth, reflection, and discipline are ongoing and they're not automatic. And so we have to begin to jump in to the discussion of what it really means to be a man, right? So I just want to ask this first question here, is that who was the man? Who represented that figure in your family? Was it your father? Was it your uncle? Was it a brother? Who you say embodied that manhood figure in your family, and why? Right? It's a really, really interesting question here, that who embodied this concept of manhood in your own family? Now, here's why I'm starting, as I ask that question, here's why I'm starting with that, because I think one of the greatest challenges in our generations today is understanding what this concept means to be a man. This notion of rejecting what I'm calling a toxic masculinity, hyper masculinity, not masculinity of itself. Now, I'm going to tell y'all right now, there's nothing wrong with teaching your son to be masculine, you being masculine. I think the concept, y'all, even embedded in manhood, I'm going to tell y'all the concept of being masculine is being hijacked. Now, let me clarify this, right? Because you could talk about manhood and we could talk about masculinity, but it's not toxic. So let me make the distinction between manhood, masculinity, toxic masculinity, or let me put it in order: masculinity, hypermasculinity and toxic masculinity under this umbrella of manhood, right? So let me start with the most extreme, the notion of toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity, when we look at it as an issue and as a challenge, you've got to minimize, you've got to downplay. You have a kind of concept that believe that women should be in a certain place or somehow to some degree should be less. You write off the concept that they're disagreeing with you is because they're emotional, and you tend to say things that are inappropriate in that regard. So this notion of being a toxic masculinity, your masculinity is tied to someone's inferiority, particularly of women. So we have the notion of masculinity, but when it becomes toxic, it looks like that. And then you have this other thing in the realm of masculinity called hypermasculinity. These are where being emotionally intelligent, being a nurturer, these things we suppress. Having feelings, having emotions, because hypermasculinity, and this is what a lot of us were taught. The concept of hypermasculinity: be strong all the time, don't cry, hide your emotions, camouflage any issues of vulnerability. Of these aspects of hypermasculinity become problematic. So if it's not toxic, if it's not hyper, then I support and I believe in the importance of masculinity. And guess what? Fathers, anyone who has an issue with me promoting the notion of masculine, I'm going to tell you, if you have a daughter and you hope that your daughter get married, you are going to give your daughter to someone that you can feel comfortable, that will protect your daughter. Let me say that. So yeah, this notion of masculinity, and even you in the notion of protecting your family. So you all, let us not let the concept of manhood or masculinity get hijacked to mean something else, that every time you open up your mouth and you talk about masculinity, then the only thing people can think of their mind is hyper and toxic masculinity. So let's take that off the table. But this notion of manhood, right, it embodies more healthier concepts, right? The strength is not domination. So we want men to be strong, right? It's emotional control, right? So I'm not talking about being emotional, but manhood sometimes is really about emotional control, integrity, and restraint. Now, I hope y'all got what I just said. These pieces here, these important elements, what I'm assigning to the notion here of manhood. And again, I'm saying emotional control, integrity, and restraint, right? So some of us, if you're honest with yourself, you put some thought to it, you might recognize that you might need to do a little work around this in the realm of manhood. So when we began to think about these what I'm referring to as critical pieces, I think it's important that we look at it. So here's my question, my first question that I'm posing to my viewers. Who taught you what it means to be a man? Who taught you what it means to be a man? Ladies, the same thing. Who taught you what a man was? I'm kind of curious. Who taught you that? And do you still agree with what they taught you today? So who was that? Was it your father? Was it your cousin, your uncle? Is it something you got off the street? But, you know, it's a very honest question, that who taught you what it means to be a man? And was it something they told you, or is it something that you saw in them? But I'm going to tell you that those three pieces here are absolutely important in the realm of manhood. We just got to stop there. Emotional control, integrity, and restraints. If you don't possess those three within as critical elements in your notion of manhood, then you got some work to do. So what does it look like? I'm talking about in these pieces here of rejecting toxic and hypermasculinity. I'm also talking about emotional intelligence and is power. That's what I think is absolutely incredible. Understand your own emotions. Um, and when we are able to do that, you prevent generational damage. So that's why emotional intelligence as a form of manhood is absolutely critical. So, who taught you what it meant to be a man? Who taught you what that really means? Who taught you what that really looks like? I think it's a very interesting and honest question for us to really ponder in that regard. And so we're defining manhood. We're looking at the concept of toxic and hypermasculinity versus what I'm referring to as emotional intelligence as power. So that's the first part of manhood, understanding it. And I'm going to tell you all, if you understand why this part of manhood is so important, because some of us turn around and we will pass that toxicity on to the next generation. We will begin the same junk that some of us got growing up, same junk that some of us saw growing up. And then you have a son, and then you turn around and teach that same junk onto your son, while at the same time, some of y'all have a daughter and try to prevent your daughter from experiencing the junk you try to teach your son. Y'all following me? So these pieces here, and under the auspices of manhood, I think are absolutely critical in the work we do. So it's an opportunity to be honest in our dialogue. So that's why I'm curious about who taught you what being a man was, what it looked like. So I'm giving you 3 points under the notion of manhood. Remember my 3 pillars here: manhood, fatherhood, and husbandhood. I'm just talking about the concept of manhood. This is the part that I'm inviting you when you have conversations with someone around this. Some of y'all might be trying to run a mentoring program, or some of you all are ladies, some of y'all are even contemplating whether or not you want to be involved with a young man, or whether or not he really kind of fits the ideal of what you're considering if you're marriage minded. And so this is why we talk about him and we focus on manhood and what it requires. And so I just told you about emotional intelligence as power. And y'all, there are other parts of manhood that I think is important. Accountability over excuses. Ooh, let me slow down and make sure y'all got that one, because this is a very difficult one in the realm of manhood, right? The first pillar: accountability over excuses. Ownership of action defines a man, not his circumstances. I'm going to slow down because I need y'all to really chew on what I just said. Ownership of action defines a man, not the circumstances. And I don't want to yell that. I don't want to do anything, but I'm just telling you that when a man, if the first thing you're doing when you're in a situation is trying to make sure people understand that it wasn't all your fault, and you've mastered the art of excuses, as opposed to understanding that ownership is really what defines a man. When I was in college, pleasant in the fraternity, they used to tell us that excuses. Oh Lord, I won't say that. Any of my big brothers from 37 years ago, I get that excuses wrong. But here's what we do know: there was no such things. That excuses are tools of the incompetent. I see what you're saying, right? I don't care what frat you in. I'm an alpha, but I don't care what frat you is. Y'all got something about excuses or monuments which build bridges leading to nowhere. Those who use these inanimate tools are masters of nothing. Therefore, there are no excuses. Yeah, that's the way we said it on the West Coast, right? So accountability over excuses, fellas, is what I'm telling y'all is really important. And the notion of ownership defines a man. And let me let y'all in on something, that our children, they need to see. Brothers, slow down the tape for a second. If your children have never seen you apologize, they've never seen you take ownership. Y'all have heard me say this a million times. I run a group on Saturday morning dealing with men around anger and family violence and all this. And one of the questions that I asked them, I said, how many of you seen the men in your family? I don't care if it's older brother, uncle, I actually, it's grown men. How many of you seen someone apologizing? I mean, literally taking ownership, not hijacking it, right? Some people don't know how to be wrong. Ownership over excuses. Here's what we understand, y'all. And I dropped this on my podcast, so you can go to the Dr. Jill White show on my podcast, and you'll see this. There is literally a right way and a wrong way to be wrong. So accountability over excuses, we understand this. There's a right way to be wrong and a wrong way to be wrong. Let me tell you the wrong way to be wrong under this first pillar of manhood. Here it is. You will accept responsibility, however, you have an explanation for it. Or you accept responsibility, but you'll hijack it. It sounds something like this. Yeah, I knew I was wrong, but what about the shit you did? Or you universalize it. Now, we done all messed up. Or you give history to it. Now, what about you? Now, if we go do this, let's talk about the shit you did in the past. This here is not the markings of a man, right? So ownership of action defines a man, not in circumstances. And so if your children have never seen you apologize, ladies, and it's the same thing for you. If I talk about womanhood, I can unpack this thing the same way, is that our ability to take ownership of it, and not ownership of it with a caveat. Some of us own shit with a caveat. Man, I'm not talking about a caveat. So you own it, right? And then this thing I'm going to call here identity before roles, right? You cannot lead as a father or a husband if you don't first understand yourself, right? Some of us, this notion of manhood, we seek to find the concept of manhood by entering a relationship and then trying to have some type of dominance over someone. I have a podcast where I talk about hobosexuals, Hobo sexuals, hobosexual. These are individuals. If you go to that podcast or the Dr. Jill White show, these are those individuals. They go from relationship to relationship for the primary purpose of having a place to stay and then taking on the role of king of the castle until it starts to play out, and then they leave. They pack up and they go to the next person. So the notion of manhood is my first pillar. So who taught y'all what it meant to be a man growing up? I'm kind of curious. Good to see you, Teddy. Y'all bring other people onto this discussion here, right? I see you, Monty Bonnie. Thank you for being on here. So the concept of manhood is the first thing we do. And under the umbrella of manhood, I said manhood requires maintenance. Under this first umbrella, I said it's emotional intelligence as a power. Y'all better write these down, right? We're in class right now. I'm talking about manhood. Number 3, manhood and accountability over excuses, right? And number 5, identity before roles, that you have to understand what you're going through. That's just the first pillar of manhood, right? So some of this stuff, some of us will compensate for some of these other areas and make up. So this is the first one I'm giving you all in the realm of manhood. So when I ask what is a man, it's not just your appendage. It's not just the roles, because every role you identify for a man. If I went on here and I asked you all, Teddy, if I said, what is a man? And you say someone takes care of his home and take care of responsibility, I'm going to say a woman can do that. Anything you ask me when it comes to what is a man, believe it or not, there is a counter to. So we see that as an issue that can get in the way. So those are my first 3 under the umbrella of manhood. Under the umbrella of manhood. So there are 3 pillars here. So this one is something that is most important to me. Is of these 3 pillars. and it's critical. Natural Health Night says, okay, I see it. So Teddy, glad to have you on. Bun, glad to have you on. So that's manhood. Pillar number one. Y'all write those down. I'm gonna revisit these, but that's the first of three. This is a three-legged P. Everything is in form of three. This is my holy trinity of the Black family that I'm offering up. But the second one is the notion of fatherhood, right? Presence over provision. Now, this here is where it's going to become a little confusing to some people, because in the realm of fatherhood, I'm saying presence over provision, right? Being present is more powerful than being perfect in this regard. We as men have been socialized to be providers, to take care of our families. We've been socialized to do for our children and for our families. And so some of us, you got the doing for down pat. That's why you hustle. That's why you get your grind on. Some of y'all might have 2 or 3 jobs because you have a certain lifestyle that you want your family to be a part of. And so we are very high on the notion of our provisions, but we suffer in our presence. And I'm going to tell you, there's a big difference. Now, y'all better write this down. There's a big difference between doing and being. The doingness of man and the beingness of a father are two separate things. The beingness of a father and the doingness. And what I'm saying, everything about society has socialized us to be the doers, right? So we put the food on the table, but the beingness, the notion of being present, right? You see it all the time. This might come as a surprise to you, fellas, but even that child of yours who's in elementary school, what do you think is more important for them? For you to get them a pair of Jordans, or for you to be present when you're seeing them perform in the school play? What do y'all think is more important? Fellas, it's an honest question. What do you think your children value more? Even your teens. What do you think, when you're honest about it? What do you really think they value more? And it might come as a surprise. Anthony, glad to have you back, man. Glad to see you. Teddy, glad to see you, right? What is more important? And so I'm saying presence over provision. I don't care if you're married, and I don't care if you're divorced. You can be a co-parent. Presence over provision is what I'm offering up to you all. It's to be very important. So let's take a look at and jump into these elements of the 5 elements of fatherhood that are connected to this notion of presence over provision. Number 1, presence is non-negotiable. So, brothers, I'm going to tell you to make promises that you can keep, and keep the promises that you make. Right? So being a caring, committed, and consistent father is absolutely critical. So your presence is non-negotiable, brothers. You've got to be there. Time, attention, and engagement shapes a child's identity. Especially for some of you brothers on the road a lot, I need y'all to understand that time, that attention, and that engagement is the part that really shapes your child's identity. It really began to help them understand how to deal with conflict, to deal with crisis, all these things. So y'all write that down. Presence is non-negotiable. These are the 5 components that I'm saying to you all of fatherhood that I'm claiming to be presence over provision. So the first one is presence is non-negotiable. Y'all have to understand that. So yeah, I know we're going to work. I know but some of us might be very, very upset because we take the position that these kids don't appreciate the shit I do, all the shit I do for them. My wife don't appreciate all the stuff that I do for them. And it's the do. And I'm sitting and I'm inviting you all to understand, if your do game is strong, but your being game is weak, if your doing game is strong, but your being game is weak, now we might have some problems, right? So I'm telling you that it's important. And let me add this here to you all. Let me tell you something. What you do to someone can far outweigh and discount what you do for them. Now, this piece here I've talked about before in some of my other shows is that I've had men who get, one gentleman I was working with dealing with substance abuse, and he was arguing about his drinking. He was deflecting his drinking and his whole argument, all the shit I do for my family and everything that I do. And I put food on the table. My kids, they never wanted for nothing. And he was just going off. And I told him in that moment, yeah, that's what you do. But let's talk about that's all the things you do for them. But let's talk about what you do to them. So when we pause and talk about sometimes what we do to our children, that's the trauma, that's the hurt, that's the disappointment. So yes, it's possible that you can do 10 things for your kid, and that one thing you do to them can discount everything else. And so I need y'all to understand it. Don't be in shock. But our children, brothers, your wives, the family, they need your presence just as much as your provisions. And I'm telling you, um, um, I'm telling you that makes a big difference. That's what I mean. Anthony said, I got to go catch the ice cream truck for my daughter. That's what I'm talking about. Y'all better pay attention when Anthony Jones pop up on there. But yeah, so the first component under fatherhood is presence is non-negotiable. Number two, what you do matters than what you buy. What you do matter more than what you buy. Now, y'all let that sit in for a second, because I don't want you to find yourself frustrated because you have bought these things for your family and you bought these things for your children, and they seem to not be very pleased. And I'm telling you that it may very well be that what you do matters more than what you buy. So it was very interesting when I was a small child. It's five with between my mother and father was five of us, right? So my dad, it's in Richmond, California. My dad used to change tires. That was part of his private job. He would have contracts with major trucking companies, and he would go out to the truck yard, and his job was to change all the tires. It might be 20 trucks, right? So what mattered most to us as kids is riding in the back of that big old Ford truck with the air compressor on the back, driving down North Richmond, Richmond, California, and driving down there, stopping at the Louisiana market down there, stop to pick up a Snicker and a Coke, and then we go out with my father to help him change. That matters way more than anything my father bought for us. So what I'm saying here is that a second pillar of this fatherhood is recognizing that what you do matters way more than what you buy. And here's reality, you all. I don't care what you buy for your child, it will get old. But what you do for them can last forever. So that's the part that I need y'all to wrap in your mind. That what you do for the children will what you do for them matters way more than what you buy for them. So that's a being present. Kids remember experiences, not expenses. Oh damn, y'all missed that. Kids remember experiences, not expenses. So they some of our children, our teens, they guess what? They may not know what you had to go through to make that thing happen, right? But we can't get but seeing the value in our children's eyes because of an experience that you gave them. Some of you all right now are adults, and you can recall very, very well certain experiences that you had with your parents, with your dad, or with your mom growing up. So this notion of fatherhood and recognizing that children remember the experiences and they don't remember the expenses. And so they are not going to know what you had to go through to make that Christmas pop the way you made it pop. The expenses is not going to stand out. But what they will remember is you taking them downstairs, you taking them into the room with the Christmas toys, and y'all open up the toys together. They'll remember that as an experience. Y'all get that? I'm walking through this notion of fatherhood, and the point that I'm saying under this umbrella of fatherhood, where I'm thinking presence over provisions. Y'all so far talked about presence is non-negotiable. Number two, I said what you do matters more than what you buy for them. These are two important ones. But this third one under this fatherhood piece, you all can be a little difficult to digest. Healing your trauma protects your children. Let me say that again. Under fatherhood, healing your own trauma protects your children. Unhealed or unsolved pain gets passed down intentionally or not intentionally. So I want you all to wrap your mind around that healing your trauma, right? Some of y'all have a stockpile of triggers, and even your own child can trigger you. And so what I'm offering up in this piece here is this third component of fatherhood, where I'm saying healing your trauma, it protects your child. And so everyone, I've not met in this crazy journey of counseling that I've done in my life, I've not met too many people who said I had no childhood traumas, right? Or no traumatic event. And I'm saying that we have those, but I'm going to tell you all that unresolved pain gets passed down. And it comes down intentionally or not intentionally. But some of our children, as fathers, you all, if we're not careful, our children will inherit those traumas, or they'll inherit the reaction to the trauma. So I got a question. What do children really need more from their fathers? Do they need the provisions, or do they need the presence? Let me ask you all that. I done laid it out, but I want to hear your perspective. What do you think our kids need more? The money, the provision, or the presence? How would you all rank that? How would you all mark that? Which would you give? Which of these would you give greater strength to, the provision or the presence? I'm kind of curious. For me, I recognize that that presence, being present, you all, at plays, at programs. When my daughter was online and being watching one of my daughters pledge Delta Sigma Theta way down in Texas, being present was critical. Teddy said, present, knowing that we are there with them. You doggone right. And when they can see you, when they can lay eyes on you. That was what I experienced with one daughter, watching her do that way down at Texas. I watched another one of my daughters, and I'm in the front row. Brother Teddy, watching my daughter at Tuskegee when she became a Delta. I'm in the front row. I'm making sure that she can see me and hear my voice. So the presence over the provisions. And so, brothers, when I'm saying these three are important, because if you're not present, but you're showing up and you're giving money and you're trying to figure out why people don't see, your family or the mother don't seem to appreciate it, because I'm telling you that you are missing the point. And I'm also emphasizing here that some of us have brought that trauma into our relationships. We brought that unresolved trauma into our parenting. Ladies, this is also relevant to you as well, right? Sometimes we bring a lot of trust issues. Brothers, you as well. We bring a lot of trust issues, and we got a lot of trauma associated with our trust. And we have problems. Now, someone says you have just proven to the entire community how incompetent and lying we have working for us. I'm not in line. I'm not sure what that means, but it's an opportunity. If you're saying that this is an opportunity to understand what's needed and what's important in terms of strengthening families, and us not getting it and not understanding it, then guess what? I'm agreeing with you. This is a great opportunity for us to see the gaps in our manhood, fatherhood, and husbandhood. And so I'm telling you, your healing, your trauma, And if it's not treated, if it's not addressed, and what I'm saying to you, that healing your trauma protects your children, but that unresolved pain, I'm going to offer up to you all that we will pass it on down to our children. So this here, under the provision of the umbrella of fatherhood, I think is important. But there's two more components under this notion of fatherhood that I'm offering up. Consistency builds security, right? Children thrive on reliability, not occasional greatness. So this is for those of you men who are not living with your children, those of you women who are not living with your children. I'm telling you, we have to be consistent in our presence. Even if they're living in a different state, I'm going to offer up to you the consistency is critical. So if you're calling every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, or you're FaceTiming or whatever every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, then you're being consistent, and your child, whether they're young or they're a teen, they begin to expect and anticipate your call. So your teenager might say, let me call you, it's Tuesday, my dad can call me. So they'll see it. And the moment you stop doing it, then they say, well, how come you didn't call? So I'm going to tell you that the reliability, when our children, whether they're teens or young adults, they thrive on the reliability, not on your occasional greatness. That means you're inconsistent with your presence. But then, Ashley, when you show up, you become great. That's problematic. So I'm saying we have to be reliable and consistent in it, right? Because number 5, under this notion of fatherhood, fathers shape the emotional development of our children. Mothers do too, but this is the conversation about fathers. Fathers shape the emotional development of their children. And so this is why your presence and everything is important, especially, watch this, in teaching confidence, discipline, self-worth, and resilience. That's what you have under this umbrella of fatherhood. But here's the tricky part. You got to be consistent. You have to be consistent in your presence. And so, let me throw this in here. Anybody who is in the metropolitan Atlanta area, let me say this. This Saturday at Atlanta Area Tech, I belong to an organization called Let Us Make Man, a gathering to reclaim Black manhood. This is our 20th anniversary. And I'm telling you all that I do the workshop on restoring the Black family. I guarantee you, you come to this workshop, when you leave, if you tell me that you've seen something like what I've done before, then you can challenge me right on the carpet. But I want to invite you all to that. So go to letusmakeman.net, log on and check out what we do here. And so you'll see why this work I do centered around building and strengthening families is so important. So we just talked about manhood. We just talked about fatherhood. The Holy Trinity is sealed off with number 3, I'm calling husbandhood. And that is commitment and covenant. So yes, I'm being honest with you, and this may be a little uncomfortable, y'all, but to be a husband is to choose responsibility over convenience, right? So you want to be a man, you want to do some man-like stuff. I'm going to tell you, when you get married, brothers, there's supposed to be a shift. You're supposed to become family-oriented. If you're a young man and you're married, but you're still focusing and thinking about self, you're setting yourself up for failure. So you have when you become married, there should be a shift in your thinking. And this is why premarital counseling and things like that is so important. I do that type of work because some of us we intellectually want to be married, but emotionally we're not ready because we are still out for self. We're still trying to do things independent. Or when we do get married, someone then told you that their wife is a helpmate. And I'm going to tell you, brothers, right now, I'm going to be honest with you, that take off the table this notion that a woman enters your life and she completes you. Ladies, take off the table this notion that a man enters your life and he completes you. No one can complete you. They can enhance you. They can strengthen you, help strengthen you. But no one should be in your life to complete you. And so we slow that down here. So it's a commitment and a covenant. And it's why I'm offering up here that these 5 points under husbandhood, we got manhood, we got fatherhood, and the third of my Holy Trinity here is husbandhood. That's what I'm calling it, right? Marriage is leadership through service. That's number one. Marriage is leadership through service. And so it's how you serve, it's what you do for your family. Men, you all have heard me say this before. Ladies, you all have heard me say this before. A man will bring peace. If man brings peace to the house, the wife will convert that house into a home. Let me say that again. Man, brothers, if you bring peace to the house, she will convert that house into a home. That's not to say that a woman can't bring peace to a house, and that's not to say that a man can't convert a house to a home. But what I'm saying in this order around what I am emphasizing in this moment, I'm saying that this marriage and relationship is leadership and service. Now, y'all, let me stop the tape now. There's a big difference between being married and in a relationship. Sometimes your marriage is a big M. Relationship is a little R. Sometimes relationships masquerade as marriage because y'all live together and y'all got all these financial responsibilities and investments together. But there is a real big difference between being married and being in a relationship. So I'm going to unpack that. Y'all go to my YouTube channel and you'll see I break down literally the difference between being married and in a relationship. For those of you who want to argue, it's the same thing. But some people, I'm going to tell you, when you get married, expectations do change. And that, as research has shown, even people who have been in a relationship for an extended period of time, when they get married, expectations change, and they should. So number one, under husbandhood, commitment over covenant, I said marriage is leadership through service. It's not control, it's sacrifice, partnership, and guidance. So yes, I want you to be, brothers, I want you to be head of your house, but don't get it confused. It's leadership through service, not control. So leadership and head of the house is about sacrifice, partnership, and guidance, brothers. This is husbandhood, why I'm treating this as part of the Holy Trinity of the Black family. So number one, marriage is leadership through service. Number two, you set the emotional tone of your home. You set the emotional tone of your home. Your stability creates peace, or instability creates chaos. So one of the things, y'all, sometimes I tell men, if you had a real hard day's of work and you done caught hell on your job and you get home, then stay in your driveway for a couple minutes. Allow yourself to debrief. But what you don't want is you done caught hell from your boss. And this is the kick can phenomenon. Your boss gives you hell. Then you give your wife hell, the wife give the children hell give the dog give the cat hell, the cat give the rat hell, the rat give the cheese hell. So sometimes we will pass that frustration down from the power, from powerless to power to powerless to power. And so I'm offering up here is that you set the emotional tone of your home. If people got to walk on eggshells around you, if people have that level of discomfort, because instead of creating peace, you're creating chaos. Good to see you, Jay. So these are the 3 pillars that are about manhood, fatherhood. We're talking about husbandhood. And so I just told you that number one, marriage is leadership through service, right? I told you that it's not control, it's sacrifice, partnership, and guidance. 2, you set the emotional tone of your home. And what I told you is stability creates peace. Hope y'all heard that. Stability creates peace, not chaos. Number 3, and y'all have seen some old heads say this, choosing the right partner is foundational. So I'm going to tell you right now, who you build will impact generations. So some of us, the foundation was flawed. Some of y'all, the partner you chose was not the partner God chose you. You chose that on your own. So I'm going to be honest with you that sometimes we have to take a look at that, right? Choosing the right partner and the motivation behind that right partner. That's why I said earlier that if you chose someone to be a helpmate, or to complete you, or these things, you've set yourself up for you set yourself up for failure. Number 4 in this realm of fatherhood, y'all, I say that commitment over feelings, right? So I'm going to tell you, this is some grown up shit. I'm telling you all. And yes, since someone asked me, am I married? Yes. How long we been together? 37 years. And I'm going to tell y'all, here it is, April 14th, 2026. And I can still tell you to this day, I've never yelled at my wife. I've never cussed at my wife. I've never called her out of her name. So yes, I teach it, I practice it, I preach it, and I teach it, right? So love is not just emotion, it's action and it's consistency. So this is why I'm saying commitment over feelings. This is why I'm saying why it's so important that when you're wrong, acknowledge that you're wrong. Sometimes you all that the way you said it, you might have been right, but the way you said it was wrong. And so now it all gets lost. And so we learn literally around emotional intelligence that sometimes the great point of the position you made gets completely lost because of the way you said it. So this is where sometimes it's beneficial, you all, sometimes to go to therapy, go the counseling. I call it communication tune-up, relationship tune-up, marriage tune-up. You do that for your car, you get your oil change. And so I'm going to tell you that under this 4th pillar of husbandhood, commitment over feelings, I think is absolutely important. And my 5th pillar that I offer up to you all is that family first mentality. The family first mentality, right? A husband prioritizes his household above his ego, above his pride, and above his outside distractions. So that right there, when we began to look at it, in these pillars here that I've offered up for you, that I'm saying, I jokingly refer to as the Holy Trinity, but I take these things as absolute truth. So a quick recap as we prepare to walk out of here. I first talked about manhood, and I said it requires maintenance, rejecting the concept of toxicity and hypermasculinity. I talked about emotional intelligence is power. I said accountability over excuses, and identity over roles, taking care of yourself first. Then I talked about fatherhood as the second leg of my Holy Trinity, where I says presence over provisions, presence over provision. So I'm talking about your presence is non-negotiable. What you do matters more than what you buy. Brothers, number 3, healing your trauma protects your children. Y'all, I'm going in. Consistency builds security, and fatherhood shapes emotional development. And finally, the 3rd pillar is husbandhood. And I told you that it was commitment over covenant. So marriage is leadership through service, that you set the emotional tone for your home. You choose the right partner as a foundation, commitment over feelings, and family first mentality, what you put the notion of family over everything. So these pieces here, as we prepare to depart, I think is critical. So men, we're not broken, we're powerful, we're resilient, and we're capable. But power without structure leads to chaos. So the Holy Trinity that I've offered up of manhood, fatherhood, and husbandhood is not just a concept. I'm telling you that it is a calling. When a man commits to growing himself, showing up for his children, and honoring his family, he doesn't just change his life, he rewrites the legacy of generations to come. So this is bigger than you. This is about rebuilding the Black family one man at a time. And so I laid these out for you for your consideration. And this is what I'm offering up here on today, and what I'm calling the Holy Trinity of the Black family for men. And that's manhood, fatherhood, and husbandhood. So you all take these notes, write these down. Hope to see everyone this Saturday, April 18th at Atlanta Area Tech for Let Us Make Man, a gathering to reclaim Black manhood. Y'all join, come, and I'm going to tell you, when you see me do the workshop on Restore the Black Family, bring the children, be the wives, bring the sisters. Y'all come to Let Us Make Man and take a look. We got several workshops. If you go to letusmakeman.net, Restoring the Black Family, you'll see Mental Health Matters. You'll see What Next, Gangs, College Craze, Career, Knowing Your Legal Rights. Y'all at Let Us Make Man, we got about 15 attorneys. So there are people there that's providing legal advice. So I invite each and every one of you all to come to Let Us Make Man, a gathering to reclaim Black manhood, and check out my workshop on Restoring the Black Family. So I'm going to say to all of you all, until next Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6:30 p.m., y'all tell someone to check out Dr. G.L. White, the TikTok doc. You can also see the same thing on my YouTube channel. Go to the Dr. G.L. White Show, and y'all do me a favor. Like, follow, subscribe. Tell somebody about the great work that I'm doing here on strengthening and building the family. And y'all, I don't just talk about it, I live it. So until next week, the same time, I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there. I'm Dr. Gary O. White. So until next time, I see you. Keep building. Keep building. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. And that, you all, is where I'm going to leave this thing for the day. And I'm going to let that thing drop. And so until next time, I see everyone here. Thank you for joining me on the YouTube channel. Y'all pick up on next time.